This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
Welcome to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and it is a chilly Friday here in Pittsburgh.
Sun's out, though.
Yeah. We get the Battle of Pennsylvania coming up here, Matt, and I thought we'd take a look at to kick off today's show with the overall efficiency ratings on ESPN.
Okay.
Where these teams come down in those ratings. And interestingly enough, they're right next to each other.
Really?
On the ratings. Philadelphia comes in overall efficiency of 68.8. That is fourth best in the league.
Okay.
The Steelers at 65.8. That is fifth.
Okay. Who are the top three?
Top three, Detroit's at 77.1.
Makes sense.
Minnesota's at 70.2.
Okay.
Then you've got the Bills at 68.9, the Eagles at 68.8, the Steelers at 65.8. Right after the Steelers, the Chargers at 62.9.
Where are the Chiefs?
They are at 62, behind the Chargers.
Okay, so they're not far off. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering how, as a side note, Aaron Schatz puts out something today about how they're one of the most overrated teams by DVOA
ever
in history. And I was just wondering.
That's what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
But Baltimore down at 61 in overall efficiency.
Okay.
Just looking at some of those other teams in the AFC, the Broncos at 59.6, the Texans at 56.7. So if the playoffs started today, per these efficiency ratings, the Houston Texans would be the worst team in the playoffs.
Be the worst team in the playoffs. Which adds up.
Yeah.
So, side note, I know we're going to talk about games later. I'll bring it up later.
By the way, the Steelers would be the second best team in the AFC.
Behind Buffalo.
And they're not far behind Buffalo.
Yeah, that's not crazy to me. I would think the Eagles, I assume they do, I don't know how much they
break it down
weight.
offense, defense, special teams.
Okay, I'm curious what that is. And I wonder, do they do any kind of weighted towards recency? I don't know if
they do or not.
I don't think they do, because I would think the Eagles are pretty strong lately. Well, at least defensively.
Defensively, not offensively.
No, offensively would be middle of the road.
They're kind of what's happening here with the Eagles is kind of what happened with the Ravens, where the Ravens' offense was on fire.
Oh, right.
Early in the season,
was terrible.
And the defense was terrible. Well, now the defense has gotten better, but the offense has gotten worse.
Slowed down a little bit. Yeah. No, I think you're right. I mean, the defense is the strongest part of the Eagles right now.
Yeah. Yet defensively, we'll start with that side of the ball anyways. Okay. The Steelers come in second in overall efficiency on defense.
That's not crazy.
It's 68.8. And the Eagles, and by the way, the Minnesota Vikings are number one at 69.0. So the Steelers aren't far off number one.
Okay.
The Eagles come in at 64.5. That's sixth.
Okay. I think they're probably skyrocketing or, screaming up the board. Who's in between them? Denver, maybe?
Denver, Houston, Detroit, and the Chargers.
Okay. Those add up. If I were to do my defensive rankings, I don't know what order I'd have them in, but I'd have the Eagles, Steelers, and Vikings as the top three. And then I'm not sure. Maybe Denver, maybe the Chargers.
This is one of the things, the issues that you have, and the Steelers have the same issue. I'm not picking on Philadelphia here.
Yeah.
But the teams that run the ball so much and win the time of possession week after week after week.
And the Steelers are first in time of possession, folks. Yeah.
You limit the exposure of your defense to a large degree.
Yeah. I mean, how many times over the last 5 years have we said more defense is bad defense?
Yeah.
Or however we want to phrase it. I mean, just if you're out there a long stretch, the dam's going to break. I mean, as good as you are, it almost doesn't matter. Quarterbacks figure you out. Coordinators figure you out. There's a fatigue factor. Stopping the run over and over gets old. So one thing I kind of dug up in the last 24 hours since we got together, and I think we both kind of feel that there's an approach to winning this game with big personnel, body blows in the early rounds, wear these guys out, Jordan Davis in particular, D tackles, don't let them be a nickel a ton, even if you're punting early or it's 3-0 after the first quarter. But the one thing I didn't realize about the Eagles is one of the reasons they run so much and so much in the second half is that's just their game. As everyone knows, they run the ball a ton. But they also wear teams out by going no huddle at a really high rate too. So they play with pace and don't let you get off the field matched with running. And then in the end, everyone's gassed.
Yeah.
But I don't know this for a fact, but I do know that the Steelers practice harder than most teams and certainly and clearly are a much better second half team and defense than Joe average team. I think they're a little bit harder to wear down than most defenses, I guess is my point.
This would be the one caveat to keep an eye out for on Sunday. And we've seen teams do this when TJ Watt or Cam Hayward are not on the field. Mm-hmm. You see some hurry up in those situations.
Exactly. Yeah. You know? I would be very wary of that in this one because they're a heavy, no huddle, don't let them sub type of team. We got them gasping, keep handing it to Saquon. You know?
Yeah. So keep an eye on that. You know, and if you do see some bigger Saquon Barkley runs, that might be one of the reasons why.
Yeah.
But if you can keep them in situations, like if you put them behind the chains on first down, or even hold that to a 1 or 2 yard gain and make it 2nd and 8.
Oh yeah,
you want to hurry up the line? Have at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we'll get to the practice report at some point, but it sounds like Ogunjobi, Elliott are questionable, right?
I don't think Ogunjobi plays. We'll see about Elliott.
I was just thinking about big people in particular.
I think Montravius Adams gets activated for this game.
I assume so. That's my next question. I figured that was in the cards.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a 1-for-1.
It is, and this is the reason why the Steelers, went out and did some of the things that they did in the offseason, and I talked about this a lot. You go out and you go get a guy like Dean Lowry as a backup. He's got 90 starts in his career.
Yeah, he's been around the block.
He's not going to step into Lincoln Financial Field and go, oh boy, this is a big deal.
Exactly. And I think like Loudermilk's getting to that point of his career too, where he's an NFL player. He's going to last. I thought Watts was that guy last year. I think it's Wormley's been that guy over the years. I think it's valuable to have like a fifth guy that's been around the block that is solid.
Yeah.
I think that goes a long way.
I kind of expect to see more Lowry in this game.
Really?
I do. I think that's kind of your 1-for-1 with Ogunjobi.
Okay. As opposed to bumping Benton or the above?
I think you leave Benton inside in the base. Mm-hmm. You're going to play him obviously more in the nickel.
Yeah, I was saying the nickel. I would think.
But I think you just plug in Lowry for Larry Ogunjobi and go with it that way.
So I mean, if they come out in their base 3-4, you think he might be a starter?
Yeah,
perhaps.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of why you got him.
Yeah, I mean, again, a guy with 90+ career starts. He's actually really good against the run. Mm-hmm. That's been his calling card throughout the course of his career. He's never been a big pass rusher per se, but
we don't bring him up much. He doesn't get talked about a lot. But maybe this is why you got him, for depth late in the year in particular.
Again, I think there's something to be said for not bringing in some guy who's a 4th-round pick this year, and all of a sudden you're thrust into this and you step in. Well, this is a big game. There's a lot of fans here.
Right. Lane Johnson's cracking down on me and I'm trying to chase Saquon. I deal with these stars every week, every year,
Yeah, Lowry's done all that stuff before.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I think that could be something to keep an eye on in this one and the hurry-up stuff. The Eagles do have an advantage offensively. They are 5th overall in offensive efficiency at 66.2. The Steelers – not quite so high. They're 16th at 48.0.
16th, okay. I would bet much of that is derived from yards per carry difference. I mean,
probably.
They're both such run-heavy teams. The Eagles have like the best yards per carry, and the Steelers are near the bottom. It's more volume. One
of the interesting things about this game, if you look at Saquon Barkley's stats this year, I'm not going to count the game against the Bengals because the Bengals' defense is awful.
It's so bad.
But if you look at the games against Baltimore and you look at the game against Cleveland this year, two defenses that are similar.
Yeah. And
similarly built to the
very
Steelers.
Familiar with.
Cleveland held him to a season low. That was 18 carries for 47 yards.
Okay. I didn't know that.
He had about 40 yards going into the fourth quarter of that game against Baltimore, if you remember, and then broke a couple of longer runs in that game. He ended up finishing with 23 carries for 107 yards. That's 4.7 yards per carry. I'm not saying you can live with that.
That's not the worst thing in the world.
But it's not 6.1.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a 60-yarder going the opposite way and breaking your back. Yeah, I think I would take that at this point. I mean, the way he's playing, the blocking they have, the dedication to the run. Fourth quarter, I bet he has a lot of long runs. I think that adds up. I almost hesitate to bring it up because it's been a while, and obviously his situation's 1,000 times better. I did that Thursday night show with Merrill and Mike, and didn't realize Barkley had ever played the Steelers, and he did.
Oh, they shut him down.
Yeah, they shut him down big time. I mean, so at least it's not all the same guys.
15 carries for 6 yards.
It was like nothing.
It's the worst output of his
whole career. Yeah.
When he had at least 15 carries. That was also Daniel Jones' quarterback.
I was going to say, I mean, it's not the same. Yeah. You have Lane Johnson and Malata and all those guys too, and this defense has changed since then. But they did do a really good job on him, and Tomlin and Hayward and Watt and those guys are part of it.
Yeah. We haven't talked a ton about that this week. If you're the Steelers defensively, we've talked about the Steelers offensively and what we would do in that situation. I think you have to sell out to stop Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, the more I thought about it, the more I think I'm playing a lot of pretty vanilla zones. Cover 3, which is their base. I don't think I'm playing a lot of man. You sent me a bunch of stats about Hurts versus man versus zone, and I started thinking and looking more into it since you did. And I don't think it's him. I just think A.J. Brown's awesome against man. I mean, he beats up man coverage, and Smith's such a sharp route runner too. They're both just better man receivers. I don't know if he's a better man quarterback. Either way, it doesn't matter. I mean, if the Eagles' passing game is better versus man, I'm not playing much man. I just don't want to allow the big play.
It's a lot markedly worse against
markedly
zone
worse. Yeah, and the way that Hurts is playing, he's still very dangerous. We know that. And he's not a bad player, but he's the weakness of the offense right now, and they flat out came out and said it. I want him to have to complete pass after pass after pass. I mean, if they out-route you to death in front of cover 3, okay, and I got a lot of people in the box, and I'm close to selling out against the run, so be it. I mean, there's not a great answer for these guys.
Yeah, that's to me why, I think this is a big Landon Roberts game. I think he's on the field in the nickel more than Peyton Wilson.
Okay. Friend of the show, Peyton Wilson.
Friend of the show. Now, if it's 3rd and 9, then Peyton Wilson's on the field. But if it's, it's less than that, and you're in nickel, you got to have Landon Roberts on the field.
Mm-hmm. It makes a lot of sense, and because they are going to run the ball. They're an aggressive 4th down team too. Yeah, we've talked about this with the Lions. Like 3rd and 5 for the Lions is probably a rundown.
It's a rundown.
Right. I mean, and I would think the Eagles treat it similarly because they run the ball so much. They have a quarterback that can run. They have the best back in the league. And on 3rd and 5, I might want Roberts out there for that reason.
Yeah. They haven't. I don't think they've gone for a ton of 4th downs this year. Well, it's 23.
They're historically aggressive, Sirianni.
Or no, they're 13 of 20 this season on 4th downs.
20's pretty much, I guess. I mean, they push a bunch.
Yeah, opponents are 15 of 23 against them. So their opponents have actually attempted more 4th downs against them than
20 plus seems like a lot. Maybe it's not. Maybe that's what every team's at this stage of the
less
game.
than 2 per game.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, we are pretty deep into the season
at this point in the season. I mean,
that's probably about the average.
Yeah,
but I'm sure 4th and 1, they're a high percentage.
Yeah, 65% the conversion rate. Opponents are at 65.2. The interesting thing about this game is that both of these defenses are really good on 3rd downs.
Yeah, they absolutely are.
I almost made that one of my guarantees. I took the average of what, if you combine the two defenses this year, what they give up on average
on third
down conversion. It's about 8 per game for if you combine them both.
Wow.
I'm like, could I possibly say there'll be 9 or fewer 3rd down conversions in this game?
I'd be safe and go 10. Benz won't know.
But that's really low.
That's really low. I mean, total conversions in the game.
Yeah.
Under 10 seems extremely low.
Extremely low.
How often do they snap the ball 15 times on
third
downs?
You're probably going to get in an average NFL game 25.
I was going to say 25, I bet.
Yeah,
in
third
the
down
norm.
attempts.
Right.
And to say that these two teams will combine on Sunday to convert less than 8 of those, or 8
What's that, 40% maybe, something like that?
It's
really low.
Between the two of them, they're allowing, the Eagles are at 34.4%, and the Steelers are even better than that at 32%.
Okay.
They don't give up. Neither one of these teams gives up much on third downs.
Yeah, that could be a really important part. And then maybe we see more fourth down decisions than usual.
That could be the case,
right.
yeah.
I mean, boy, Tomlin should have went for it on fourth. Or I can't believe Sirianni went for it on fourth in that situation. Well, maybe there's a lot more to come up that are, debatable for a coach.
Yeah, that's something to keep an eye on in this particular game because These are two of the best defenses in the league.
One of your guarantees, well, do whatever you want, but I would, whatever the over-under Hurts rushing yards is, I'm going under. I mean, some of the stuff about Steelers against quarterback rushes and scrambles is incredibly low, incredibly good.
Yeah.
And I think they're not going to let him out. I mean, even like the number of scrambles, called pass plays that turn into a quarterback run, they're way less than whoever number 31 is on.
That's the team speed in the middle of the field.
Yeah, and a pass rush plan.
And a pass rush plan.
Yep.
If you look at it, it's interesting. Hurts averages 10 yards per scramble.
Does he?
On his scramble. I think it's 10 yards, just over 10 yards when he scrambles on a passing play. But his overall rushing number he's averaging 41.8 rushing yards per game, 4.1 yards per attempt.
He's got a lot of 1-yarders.
Because of all the 1-yarders.
Yeah, they do so many of those pushes. There's a lot of them for sure. Yeah, he's 10 yards per scramble. Yeah, but he isn't. You're crazy. You're not. Yeah, that is crazy. 13 rushing touchdowns. I bet the average distance of them is like 1.2 yards or something. Right? Yeah, probably one long one or whatever.
But you've got all that, and then you're averaging 4.1 yards per rushing attempt.
Yeah. Wow. So here's the Steelers' numbers. I thought these were incredibly low too. So they're the third fewest rushing yards per game to quarterbacks.
Yeah.
At only 11.6, but only one rushing touchdown.
And you face Jay Daniels, and you face Lamar.
Yeah, I mean, the best guys out there. But on scrambles, they've only allowed 31 rushing yards all year. That's the best in the league.
And a lot of that was to Jameis Winston last week.
I bet it was. Yeah, you're right. And the Dolphins are next at 110.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a huge gap there. They've only allowed 9 quarterback scrambles all year. I mean, that's insane to me. The average NFL defense is at 25.
Yeah.
Like, wow. I mean, they really bottle those guys in.
Some of that as well is if you think about, T.J. Watt a couple of weeks ago in Cincinnati, Burrow gets out of the pocket and he starts to run towards the line of scrimmage, and all of a sudden here comes Watt behind him.
From behind, yeah.
From behind.
Yeah.
Herberg's the same way. You get those strips in that. And
they're wary of getting the ball stripped.
Yeah.
Every quarterback's got to be on top of that.
And Hurts has fumbled 8 times this year.
Mm-hmm. To me, that's almost – if we get back here on Monday and be like, wow, Steelers won. I picked them to lose, but they won. I bet there's either a strip sack that they scoop and score or something along those lines, or a block kick or something like that, or maybe 2.
Again, winning in the margins.
Yeah. But the strip sack thing is something I'd be – how can we lose this game? We always talk about that.
Yeah.
From the Eagles side of things, I'm like, Jalen, you got to be careful with this week more than ever.
With these guys, they'll get you.
They'll get you. Yeah.
So let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. When we return, we'll be joined by Missy Matthews right after this. And we are back on The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And we're joined on the Justin Miller hotline, which is being manned by C.J. Wolfley today. By Missy Matthews, the Steelers sideline reporter. Missy, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Fantastic. We are just fantastic. And a big matchup this weekend with the Philadelphia Eagles. You would think, Missy, and this is always, I always wonder at this all the time. I can remember walking into we were in Denver one year. And the Rockies had just beaten the Phillies, I think, in the playoffs or something like that. And the place where the establishment we were going into carded everybody. I'm like, all right, I was 40 years old at the time or whatever it was. And he looked at our Pennsylvania licenses and he said, "Oh, we just beat your baseball team." And I looked at him like it took me like 5 seconds to figure out what the heck he was talking about, because Philadelphia and Pittsburgh aren't close to each other.
I've got a running joke actually with my San Francisco co-host on another podcast that he said everyone in the East thinks the same thing about California. Like Northern California and Southern California aren't even close, let alone Eastern PA and Western PA. Like there's a big difference in between.
There are like 6 different NFL cities we can get to much quicker than we can get to Philadelphia.
Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, you bust to Cleveland, you fly to Philly. That's simple.
Yeah. The reason I bring this up is I don't expect to see a lot of Steeler fans in Philadelphia this weekend, even though it's an in-state game. Do you agree with me on that one?
1,000,000%. I think the Philly fans have a reputation that they like to, hold and keep near and dear to their heart of maybe not being very welcoming. I wouldn't say it would be like, a Penguins fan going to a Flyers game in Philly. But I still think that it's a level of like, nah, maybe sit this one out. And I even, that 2022 game, I don't remember seeing very many Steelers fans there.
I don't either. Yeah, and I've been out there several times, and I don't recall seeing Steeler fans are not going to take over the stadium. Plus, you've got an 11-2 team against a 10-3 team. Yeah, this is a marquee matchup.
Yeah, they're going.
No doubt. I mean, they clinched the playoff spot, but I think for them, knowing that, if they can keep on their win streak, which they've done for 9 straight weeks, good things can come in terms of seeding. And I'm sure, just as we all will be paying attention to what happens in the Bills and the Lions game, that game means something to both PA teams that will be going head-to-head on Sunday.
Absolutely. The Steelers can still get into the playoffs, even if they win the game they're in, period. If they lose the game, but Miami and Indianapolis also lose, the Steelers clinch a playoff spot. And to me, I look at this game and I look at this stretch of games, these next 3 games, and I mentioned this earlier in the week. Like when the schedule came out, everybody pointed to these 3 games and goes, well, this is going to make or break the Steelers season. And I don't feel that way anymore.
I kind of feel like it's made already.
Do you feel similarly about this thing? Or I mean, obviously you want to win these games, but they're not if you don't win all 3 of these, you're in trouble.
Correct. I mean, sure. If you did that, and then you have to win Week 18 against Cincinnati to maybe improve your playoff spot, I still just think that I don't think they're going to go 0-3. I'm not saying they're going to go 3-0.
Right.
But I think they are at a point where they have set themselves up with a buffer, and that is not something that we are used to this time of year. I feel like it's usually like, all right, we need somebody to lose this game. We need to win the next 4, whatever it is. It's never kind of like maybe take a deep breath. You're not officially in, but you pretty much are once you got to 10.
Yeah, you control everything here.
Right. I mean, it'd be different if you lost to Cleveland or Cincy or, with those 2 wins in the books, you're sitting in really good shape.
Imagine if they would have won in Cleveland, where you'd be sitting right now.
Absolutely.
Well, you'd have already clinched, and then you'd have a 3-game lead on Baltimore with 4 to play, and
I wouldn't mind replaying any of those 3 losses. I'll take the Steelers in every one of those.
Dallas, Indianapolis, those are games that you probably win.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe they needed those early ones. Not so much a wake-up call, but just like get them out of your system. And you knew you were getting those 2, the Indy and Dallas one, like you said, out of your system before the AFC North gauntlet that you have to go through is taking place. So it could be way worse. And I think that we're typically used to this not much of a cushion this time of year where we're not, like last year, waiting to see what happens in a game that we're already done.
Missy, have you sensed that there's a change in the perception regarding the Steelers, even nationally and maybe even a little bit locally?
That's interesting. Maybe locally, I feel like most fans feel like they're kind of how I'm wired, where you're always like expecting the worst. And maybe there's a little bit more excitement.
I didn't know you were the dean.
It's like Dean of
Doom here. Yeah, you're channeling some Labriola here.
Yeah, I have a little labs in me. I'm not going to lie.
Maybe he rubbed off on you. Yeah.
Listen, I forever will remember the 2016 season going to New England for the AFC Championship. My youngest, I think, was like maybe 1 at the time, maybe not even. And my husband and brother were like, all right, we're going to book some flights for Houston. Like, we were like feeling that mojo. And then at halftime, I looked at my phone and it was, so we canceled those flights. I'm like, okay, yep, that's a good idea. A good idea. And I kind of really got my hopes up on that one. So since then, I've just tried to not be upset, but more pleasantly surprised when things go well.
I mean, we all know the Steelers haven't won in Philadelphia. 1965. I mean, they've won in every other city but that one since the Super Bowl era. And I'm sure some of it has something to do with, they're not going to sell their tickets. It's going to be a lot of green in the stands. But is there more to it than that? When you're down on the sidelines for those games, is it more daunting? Is there some kind of black magic going on that I don't know about? I don't get it.
Yeah, that it's not like last week we were all riding the Cleveland one where now it's 21 straight home games in Pittsburgh for them that they've lost. I honestly can't remember. 2016 was the game before 2022. I don't even remember if I was there or not. But I don't know if it's like how it is like Cleveland, when they lose in Pittsburgh, sometimes they're firing a head coach on the way home, or there's just something crazy happening.
Usually they don't even wait for that. They just do it and get it over with.
True. Right. But I mean, think about how many people that game, because it's usually one of the last weeks or the last week, and then it ends up, someone gets the pink slip. So I don't know. I wouldn't say it feels like there's, some black magic, but I think regardless, it's, 10 games since 1965. It maybe this is the year they can turn it around, and then we don't have to keep going back to that stat.
Yeah, and really when you look at it, I mean, both of these teams have struggled in the other team's state. I mean, the Eagles haven't won in Pittsburgh since 2000. It's like, but they don't play each other all the time. So it's not, to your point, like Cleveland, where they're here every year and you just get that thrown in your face year after year after year, like, oh, you guys can't win.
But it's not like one organization is always at the top of the league and the other one's always at the bottom either. They're both pretty successful organizations.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, and I think because, like you said, it's not AFC North, and even, like, I remember the 2022 game, that was kind of the first time that it really hit me that they had not won there in so long. And obviously that wasn't that long ago, so I remember it pretty well this time. Plus, that game, let's say, was not forgettable, to say the least.
Hard Knocks showed us a little glimpse of George Pickens being anxious to get on the field while he was, not in pads. Mm-hmm. Did you get that impression? Were you near him at all during the game? Was he jumping out of his skin to get in there?
Oh, that is the perfect way to probably describe what he was like. I think at first he kind of had the hood up. He had his, George mask on, and he was, I think, trying to play it cool. I don't know if he knew that CBS's cameras had already spotted him. But then I think once things got going, and especially once the offense got going, I mean, at some point I'm pretty sure that somebody probably wanted him just to sit down, because the running he was doing down the sideline when Van Jefferson got that touchdown, he went crazy. And just so excited, pumped up for the guys, talking to everybody, very engaged. It's not like he was sitting there pouting. You could tell he was upset. And as you said, you heard it from the Hard Knocks cameras, but definitely somebody who was trying to do whatever he could, even though he couldn't be out there.
Yeah, that's one of the things about George, I think, that gets kind of lost in the perception of him that, well, he's not a good teammate. I don't know that that's the case. I just think he's wired it to the point where he feels like when he's on the field, he gives them a better chance to win.
A lot of competitiveness, right?
He's a very competitive guy.
Yeah.
No doubt, but it's true. It's not like it's, he's full of himself, and it's not true. I think, that it probably wouldn't have taken so long for the offense to get going in that game last Sunday. And I think, as you said, those like apex predators, it's how they're wired. I think if you go to Georgia, you have that in you. You're winning national championships. So not being able to be out there probably was not the best feeling, especially, it was a late week injury. You probably were thinking, clearly Coach Tomlin thought he'd be able to go. And then it kind of just all started to crumble.
So I've been meaning to ask you this the last couple of weeks, and just Hard Knocks triggered it for me. Is the Hard Knocks crew on the sidelines, do they have an obvious presence? Are they a distraction? Is there a ton of them there? Is there hardly anyone? I mean, like, what's that like? Is it different on game days when they're there?
Honestly, NFL Films always has, usually I should say, has a camera and a boom operator similar to what the team has.
We hate
Alec
boom operators.
Yeah, we're anti-boom operators over here.
Sometimes they're nice, sometimes they're not. Let's just say that. But
right.
Those are so normal. I think obviously because they have a field producer who's listening in to all the different people, the coaches and players they have mic'd up. He's kind of noticeable, but it's not like they're standing next to them. They still have to respect what the rules are. They do get a little bit more leeway of, being able to be there right outside of the locker room when coach is welcoming guys in. I know they got to briefly step foot, which is not something that typically happens, just to get a celebration. But other than that, it's pretty normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Missy, we will let you get back to your shopping here. It's a Friday, and I did a bunch of shopping on Monday this week because I was sitting there after the game, that morning, and I'm like, we got 3 games in 11 days coming up here. That leads right into Christmas. I'm not going to have any time to Christmas shop, so I got to get it done now. So I went out and hit that heavily on Monday.
Listen, I am with you. I am like, everyone's getting a gift card and some sort of Sarah's chocolate, like a candy bar, a stand of something, taping it on a card, and we're calling it a day.
There you go.
For all of the teachers out there, that's what you're getting.
Don't forget some sideline snacks for Max, though.
Oh, we always have sideline snacks. I actually was debating, should I buy, what Sarah's chocolate should I buy for this, or should I wait? I kind of want to go to Oakmont Bakery tonight. Things I don't need to be doing because I'm not packed. I have to run to sports tomorrow, but these are the things that I'm thinking about pulling off on a Friday.
Well, if it's Max, you better not go light on the snacks.
Yeah, that's right. No, never with Max.
Our guest has been Missy Matthews, Steelers sideline reporter. We appreciate you dropping by, Missy. We'll see you on Sunday at the game. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley, and this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with more right after this. And welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, I don't know if you saw this last night, but the Steelers on their YouTube channel and on Steelers.com released a video, The Birth of Blitzburg.
I haven't seen it yet, but I am definitely going to watch it tonight.
Yeah, Nate Hogan put that thing together, and there's a lot of interviews on there with guys that players, coaches, all that stuff over the years. I'm ticked off at Nate, though. He didn't interview me about that. I was there for all that stuff.
I was like, you were around,
Ed Bouchette
right.
on it. What am I, chopped liver here?
So they did have some media folks on there, too.
Well,
then, huh?
Ed was the only one, and I get it. Ed's Ed.
Ed's a legend. Yeah.
But, yeah, so check that out on there. And I bring that up because the Steelers aren't Blitzburg anymore.
No, not at all. I mean, but not at all. I mean,
they blitz at a very low percentage of the time this season, and they want to get there with 4 guys.
Because they can. It's really the envy of all defensive coordinators is if you can't get home with 4 with some consistency, that's a problem, especially this time of year in playoff times. I mean, it's one of the trends. If you look at the best, really Super Bowl winners are almost always able to get home with 4. And you could argue, well, if they're going to protect with 6 or 7, maybe you should send 5 more often, and maybe that would free up Watt. And I get that, but what they have up front is really the envy of the league. And there's other teams that are loaded too, but that's a really good group.
So when we were talking about the best defenses in the league, and you mentioned Minnesota, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they're my top 3.
Minnesota is the outlier in that group.
Very much so.
They're the team that blitzes like crazy.
Yeah.
The Eagles blitz even less than the Steelers do.
Yeah,
they're like
a good point
18%.
Too. Yep. Minnesota, give Flores all the credit in the world. I mean, that's mostly scheme driven.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many Pro Bowlers will even be off that defense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good players. There's a lot of good fits. There's a lot of smart, versatile Belichick pieces. You know what I mean? I know what I can get out of this guy. Martellus, their safety, does a million different things for him, things like that. But you're right. I mean, I don't think the Eagles' pass rush is what it used to be, though. I mean, I think a big thing their defense is so much better at is they're so much better at linebacker and much better in their back 7 overall than they've been, which is a philosophical thing. I wonder, Howie Roseman is the biggest proponent in the league of, well, we have 7 good D linemen, probably need an 8th. Take one in the second round.
Here's the thing, though. Yeah. They only have 5 defensive linemen on their roster.
Yeah, I know. That's odd to me, too. But I think this offseason he realized, I mean, that team crumbled a year ago. The second half of the season, they were a bad football team, and then they got embarrassed in the first round. And there was a lot of play there.
And then they got off to the slow start this year, and that's when they stopped throwing the ball so much.
Yeah, and head coach's seats start getting hot after the year before, and you got these coordinator changes and what's different. But I do think Roseman realized, I don't think I can just ignore safety and linebacker anymore. I mean, they hit a home run in Zach Bond. There's no way they thought he was going to be one of the best linebackers in the league when they signed him to close to league minimum deal. But they did draft Dean. They drafted Trotter's kid, so they actually put some resources into it. Same with safety, and they're so much better at corner. So I think a lot of theirs is personnel driven, and I think Fangio is a really good coordinator. But their front four is not as scary as it's been over the years with Fletcher Cox and Hargrave and Brandon Graham and those dudes.
Yeah, they're blitzing at just an 18.6% rate. The Steelers are at 24.1%. Both in the bottom of the league.
Yeah.
Only 3 teams blitz less than the Eagles.
Who
Buffalo,
are they? Okay.
San Francisco, and Jacksonville. The fact that Jacksonville doesn't blitz more because they don't get any sacks, and they hemorrhage,
I don't think they trust their
they hemorrhage yards
at all.
through in the secondary.
Yeah, I just don't know
Even
if they have any
playing,
answer.
Well, but that's what Flores has done in Minnesota.
Right.
Minnesota's doesn't have any dudes in their secondary.
No, not really. I mean,
and they give up some of the most passing yards in the league, but they blitz and try to get the sacks.
Who are the top guys? If you go to the other end of the spectrum?
Minnesota.
I assume they're really high.
Kansas City.
Yeah.
Detroit, Denver.
Detroit just plays a ton of man, and actually Denver and Detroit play a lot of man. Trust your corners. We're just going to be aggressive to no end.
Yeah.
But the difference of the two teams is Detroit gets burned, they're going to get it back whenever they get the ball. I mean, that's part of it.
But you would
same
think
with Kansas City,
you would think Philly
that.
could play that way.
Yeah.
They're playing a little more close to the vest this year. They're not blitzing a lot.
Yeah.
They're not throwing the ball a lot. They want to run. They've run the ball more than any other team in the league.
Yeah. And what's interesting too, these two PA teams, Bond was an edge guy.
Yeah.
I mean, at Wisconsin. I mean, he is a very, very good off the ball linebacker pass rusher. Roberts, Wilson, and Queen also have a lot of sacks in their lifetime too, and are very good pass rushers too. Where I don't know what Jacksonville's are like, or some of these other teams in terms of who are your blitzers. Are they good blitzers? Well, the Eagles and Steelers have good blitzers.
Yeah, it's just interesting, that they're playing it so close to the vest, and they're kind of winning in the margins on their own in some instances there. But I guess you trust your defense, and again, you're running the ball a lot. And
I say both these teams shorten games and don't make their defense play a lot of minutes.
Yeah,
which I think goes a long way too.
If you then look at pressure,
I do think the Steelers are deeper.
Yeah, if you look at pressure rate. Despite not blitzing all that much, the Steelers are top 10 in pressure rate. Philadelphia, meanwhile, is at the bottom. They're in the bottom 6 in the league in pressure rate, 19.1%.
I know it's really, really
They don't
low.
get a ton of pressure.
I think they turn a lot of pressures into sacks, but I think their sack numbers have really spiked the second half of the season. They were low in sack rate.
Well, I would hope so when you're playing. I mean, if you look at some of the slop that they played in the second half.
Too, and some of the O-lines they've played too.
Yeah.
So that might have a lot to do with it. And Jalen Carter's snaps are going up. He's their best guy. So I don't know that they're a great pass rushing team. I don't have numbers to back this up, but just trust me on this one, guys, that the Steelers' pressures, I forget who figured it out, though. Not all pressures are created equal. Not all interceptions are created equal, sacks, etc. But the Steelers' pressures influence quarterbacks much more than most teams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They feel their presence, their pressure. And I'm not even talking about the ones where Watt doesn't get a pressure and he's triple teamed. Obviously, that does too. But I mean, it's in terms of when they create pressures, a lot of bad things happen to offenses. That's when the turnovers come, the tip balls. So
in our replies on the YouTube this week, somebody brought that up. Well, T.J. Watt, other than that tackle for a loss that he had last week, he was non-existent against the Browns. I'm like, did you watch the game?
Right.
Because he affected
a lot
how the ball was thrown, when it was thrown.
His run defense was great, too.
Where it was thrown.
Yeah.
There were a couple of times where he got a hand up into the passing lane, and Winston had to tuck it down and throw the ball sideways or do those kind of things. Yeah. That's what you're talking about when you're affecting with pressure.
Absolutely.
It's not a made-up stat. There's something there that you were affecting the quarterback with.
Yeah. So, just to flip it, when the Steelers are on offense on Sunday, let's say Mason McCormick, like most right guards, has a really hard time with Jalen Carter. And he keeps lining up on that outside shoulder in the B gap. You're not going to really put a back to help there.
Yeah.
Plus, as good as Harris and Warren are, if Carter's coming free, he's 300 pounds. I mean, he's going to run over most backs in the league. So one of the only real ways to help with him is Jones. So
what a lot of teams do now as well, especially if you're showing a lot of pressure up through the A and B gaps, is they'll bring a tight end in and set him right next
and kind of shimmy him across. Yeah. I was thinking they might do some of that. But I was thinking, too, like Carter's presence might allow the Eagles to get a lot of one-on-ones edge versus Washington. Now, he's more equipped to do that than most tight ends, but that's what every defense coordinator wants. You know, if I can get my edge guys against tight ends or backs.
Well, most tight ends are 250 pounds.
Yeah, he's the exception to
not
the rule.
305.
Right. But in terms of pass rush plans, I have Carter, I have Sapp, I have Randall. Boy, he's Donald. I have hard guys to double. So my edge guys are going to get some favorable matchups there, you know?
Washington's kind of a unicorn.
Very much so. Very much so.
I mean, he really is. Like, when I talked to some of his teammates last week about how much he really weighs.
It's a lot.
It's over. Like I was told, he's not in the 200s anymore.
Yeah.
But he's not the 315 that Russell Wilson said he was a couple of weeks ago.
Well, there's not much room in between. Still pretty big for a tight end.
But he's 6'8". He still runs well.
Yeah, he's not fat he's just a huge human being.
But
he's a massive unicorn.
I mean, when you're attacking the Steelers' offensive or defensively with their offense, you have to kind of account for that guy. It's almost like you're playing with a sixth offensive lineman all the time.
Right. And we don't talk about this enough, and I don't think our listeners realize it enough. I think he's one of the most important offensive players they have because he creates mismatches.
Yeah.
You know, just like in any sport, man, this guy's an amazing jump shooter, or this guy's an amazing slasher. Well, how do I handle that? I mean,
it's like he's like a shot blocker in basketball.
Yeah, right.
Like, that doesn't affect the game. Well, he only gets like 3 blocks a game.
Yeah, but I never go in the paint.
But so you don't. Yeah, you just avoid the paint. You don't attack that guy.
And the other 4 defenders, his teammates, know it, so they defend you differently too. There's all this ripple effect for those type of guys. You know, like Patrick Ricard has some of that.
Yeah, it's like playing with an extra offensive lineman on the field all the time.
All the time. But he's got a better chance of catching the ball or getting you a first down or a touchdown than Ricard.
Yeah, it's almost like Juszczyk. Having Juszczyk on the field for San Francisco, what do you consider that guy when they line up?
Yeah. 100%.
Like, okay, he's a tight end. He's as big as an offensive lineman, but he also has 18 catches this year. Like you can't just ignore him as a pass catcher, which is what teams were doing early in the year, and that's why he was getting a bunch of catches then.
And I think this year, even more than last, he was a rookie last year, they'll leave him alone as an edge protector like he's a left tackle. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Because he's
kick
good
sliding
at it.
And looking like a tackle. And frankly, if he would choose to make that switch, I think he could. You know, I mean, if he just purely dedicated himself to being an offensive lineman.
I did ask Spencer Anderson. I had that in last week's 5 for Friday.
Yeah.
I said, could he do that? And it'd probably take him a year to work on technique and stuff like that. But he could definitely. He's got the size.
Yeah,
he's got the feet. He's got the athleticism.
You know, I mean, he'd probably train differently. He'd definitely practice.
He's got the long arms that you're looking for. The body type.
Like if he was coming out of college today, and instead of running with the tight ends at the combine, he was a project tackle. You'd be like, okay, well, we're gonna redshirt him basically his rookie year, coach him up. And maybe he turns into Jordan Mailata.
It's not even like, we had to feed him a bunch of steaks. No, he's already
got
there.
The steaks, right. But maybe he would work on his lower body strength more than his agility and speed, whatever it is, thickness and things like that.
But I really
think he's a really rare player.
And that's why when we say, the Steelers should play a lot of 12 and 13 personnel in this game, he's kind of the reason why. Most teams, when you do that, okay, you're gonna run 3 250-pound tight ends out there at us. All right. We'll deal with it. But when one of them is basically a sixth offensive lineman who can also catch the football, it's a little different. It's a different task. It's a different way that you have to defend that.
And we'll never know this answer, but I mean, I'm sure Arthur Smith would have taken the offensive coordinator job no matter what. But I bet he looked at him and said, my system with all my tight ends and that guy, and after that rookie season, I don't usually get that kind of unicorn to play with. You know what I mean?
That's why it's interesting, for say, a matchup against Buffalo.
He seems to love
that.
Nickel.
Love to play nickel. They play nickel 90+% of the time. Well, if he's on the field and you're playing nickel, you're at a disadvantage.
You're at a disadvantage physically no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what, right.
So that's why I'm going to be interested to see. That's why I want to see early in this game how Philadelphia, when the Steelers come out in 12 and 13 personnel, what do they do? What's their counter to that?
If their counter's nickel, I'm just running it over and over and over.
Darnell Washington might play 100% of the snaps.
Yeah. And he plays a lot of snaps.
Yeah.
I mean, he really does. I mean, especially when Pruitt was out, and it's not uncommon over the course of the year. It's changing lately for him to be the most snap count or the highest snap count amongst tight ends on the team. Now Freiermuth's really starting to his role's growing too. But but those two are going to be key for this game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of this game. And again, I think it's part of that chess match when you start when you got a guy like Fangio who's really sharp.
Yeah.
And you got a guy like Arthur Smith who's really sharp. You get those two kind of guys matching wits against each other. It's the game within the game.
It also frees Freiermuth to be a receiver.
Yeah.
And that's going to be key in this game without Pickens, too.
Absolutely.
You handle the blocking stuff, maybe Freiermuth chips somebody on the way out or whatever, but we're designing more for him, you know?
Absolutely. That's going to do it for hour number 1 of the drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with hour number 2 right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and this is the drive on the Steelers Audio Network, and it is time for the Fantasy Football Focus. And before we get into picking this week's lineup, our captain's chair lineup hit last night.
Nice.
Only 55.78 points, but there were only 18 points scored in the game.
It wasn't fantasy bonanza.
It was definitely not that. That
right.
was yuck.
And whether it's something to do with it, but it was more than that, too. There was a lot of drop balls, pretty sloppy. I assume you saw that Campbell, the linebacker, decided not to go in the game, told them no. Purdy struggles in weather. I mean, the Niners weren't very impressive to me.
No, they weren't, and nor were the Rams.
Was super
Nobody was impressive
right.
in that game. But Puka Nacua did have 17.8 points for us. That was a good call. We had both quarterbacks. Stafford in the captain's chair got us 12.3 points. It wasn't great.
No touchdowns in the game, yeah.
He actually ran a little bit last night.
Yeah.
They might be trying to get him killed a little bit, but
there was some questionable decisions.
Yeah.
But, hey,
Purdy only had 4.98 points. Kittle had 10.1. He had almost half of the receiving yards. Jake Moody had a 50-plus yard field goal and a 40-plus yard field goal, so we got 9 points out of him. And we got a Tutu Atwell catch.
Yeah, one catch goes a long way in a game like that for the cheap guy.
So
I guess Moody was probably our best value then.
I would say so. The kickers are always
solid.
Yeah.
But, considering no one else did anything, that was nice to have them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we finished in the money there. We'll see if we can roll that over and do it again this week in the our main lineup here. And let's go ahead and take a look at defenses here. We're going Sunday, Monday games. There's 2 Monday night games this week, so don't forget that.
One's not so great, but
The Ravens are the most expensive defense at $3,900.
Totally get it. They've gone up to like a 17-point favorite.
The Chiefs are $3,700. Bengals are $3,500. Are you kidding me?
That's crazy to me. I know it's not a great team they're playing, but that's a terrible defense.
It's awful. Commanders, again, not a great defense, $3,400 against the Saints. Now, I get that.
Jake Herner.
Herner, yeah. The Texans against Miami are $3,300.
I would not touch that. It's not a bad defense, but there's going to be a lot of points in that game.
Vikings against Chicago are $3,300.
I understand, but Chicago's...
Bears on the road.
I hadn't thought of that. So the Bears are kind of dangerous. They've come off a terrible game.
Atlanta at Las Vegas is $3,200.
Their D's been a little more productive with sacks and fantasy stuff lately.
Could be Ritter, too.
I think it will be,
yeah. Indianapolis at Denver. Denver is $3,200.
Okay. I thought you were saying Indy's more expensive than Denver.
Green Bay at Seattle is $3,100. Philadelphia against the Steelers is $3,100. The Jets against Jacksonville, $3,000.
That's not bad.
That's not terrible.
I mean, I don't know what motivation either one of those teams has, but I don't see a lot of points in that game.
Arizona against New England at home is $3,000.
It's not a good D, but it's not a terrible matchup. I think they're both coming off a bye.
Detroit against Buffalo at home is $2,900. I don't like that.
I don't have anything to do with either of that.
Chargers against Tampa Bay, $2,900. No. Dallas against Carolina, $2,800. No.
I remember not loving a lot of defensive matchups this week.
The Steelers against the Eagles is $2,800. Carolina against Dallas is $2,700. Jacksonville against the Jets is $2,700. Buffalo against Detroit is $2,600. That's really cheap for the Buffalo.
It's really
defense.
cheap for them, but I just think there's going to be a lot of points in that game.
Seattle's defense, $2,600 at home against Green Bay.
I don't think that's bad because I think that's a very good defense at home. I mean, it's not they're playing a bad team, but so far Seattle and the Jets are my favorite.
Tampa Bay against the Chargers is $2,600.
It's not bad.
Indianapolis at Denver is $2,500.
Do we think the Broncos are going to put up a ton of points?
No.
I don't either.
The Raiders at home against Atlanta are $2,500. Cousins have a couple more.
He's probably got a pick or two in him.
Miami against Houston is $2,500.
Okay. Their D has been terrible.
New England against Arizona is 2,400. New Orleans is 2,400. Chicago at Minnesota, 2,300. Tennessee against Cincinnati, 2,300. Cleveland against Kansas City is $2,200.
I think that's my favorite.
They've been giving up sacks like crazy. And Mahomes is throwing 10 interceptions. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Garrett versus those tackles?
Yeah.
In Cleveland? I don't know if there's weather or not, but there's always some kind of weather.
And it's not like the Chiefs aren't scoring a bunch of points.
No. That seems way too cheap. Are there injuries we don't know about?
I don't think so.
I mean, as long as Garrett's playing, everybody else I can live with.
$2,200 for the Browns at home?
I think sign it up.
Yeah.
And we know how that works. I mean, by kickoff, there might be crazy winds or something goofy.
Absolutely.
I mean, it can always happen there.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think
that's really cheap.
That game might be played in the teens.
Mm-hmm. It's only a 4-point spread. Like they're expecting a close, low-scoring game.
At tight end. So if we have money left over, we can look at some
go
other
back,
stuff,
but I didn't love a lot of them.
Brock Bowers, 6,600 at tight end. Trey McBride, 6,000. He's questionable. Travis Kelce, 5,700. Jonnu Smith, 5,400. Njoku is questionable.
I don't think he's a play.
He is 5,200. Dalton Kincaid, questionable. He's 4,900. T.J. Hawkinson is 4,800.
That's not bad.
Cade Otton, 4,500. Sam Laporta, 4,400. Hunter Henry,
is that cheap for Laporta? Are the Bills like number one against tight ends?
They're
or something?
fourth best.
Okay. I mean, I know he hasn't had a great year, but he seems like he's a little cheaper than he should be in a high-scoring game.
Mark Andrews is 4,100. Zach Ertz, 4,000. Tucker Kraft, 4,000.
Why is Andrews so cheap?
They're second against the tight ends.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're 17-point dogs.
Freiermuth is 3,900.
He'll get more targets than usual.
Kyle Pitts
I think the Eagles are decent against tight ends.
They're eighth best.
They had a couple good things and a couple bad things on the tight end stats.
Kyle Pitts is 3,900. Jake Ferguson, 3,800. Carolina is 32nd against opposing tight ends.
He didn't do a ton last week, but he's out there all the time.
Yeah. Cole Kmet is 3,800. Noah Fant, 3,600. I'm looking. Grant Calcaterra, 3,500. Going to be on the field all the time.
Yeah, for as cheap as he is.
Where's my guy at here?
They just don't throw, as we know.
Schoonmaker is 3,300. They still threw him the ball last week.
Oh, Schoonmaker, yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking about the Eagles don't throw.
Noah Gray, 3,200 against Cleveland. They're 23rd. Where is our guy at? Michael Mayer is 3,000.
Sneaky one for you if you want to go really cheap. What about Akins with the Browns?
Akins is 2,700.
They throw so much.
They're 31st against opposing tight ends.
You mentioned a while ago, Tillman's probably not going to play. I mean, if they throw the ball 45 times like he often does, I'm sure Judy and
can't catch them all.
They can't catch them all, right?
Yeah, that's not about if we knew for a fact that Njoku was out. And Stone Smart is 2,600.
That's not bad either. Like, he got picked up in all my dynasty leagues. There's a league I'm really, really lean on in redraft that I considered it.
Tampa blitzes like crazy. They're 27th against opposing tight ends because you want to get the ball out quickly against that blitz stuff.
Yeah. He's not a bad athlete.
No.
I'm fine with it.
I think he had 3 catches. What do you have last week? 3 catches?
He has a little bit of run after the catch to him.
He had 3 for 54 last week with Dissly out.
Yeah.
Like
Dissly's out for a while.
Dissly's out. Yeah.
Oh, another weird one. What's Brendan Strange with Ingram being out for the year? I mean, it can't be much cheaper.
He's probably a little more expensive actually because he's actually been part of their game plan. I don't even want to go there anyway, so I don't like that passing game. He's 2,500.
Okay.
So
I'd rather go Smart.
Yeah.
With 2 T's.
Better quarterback situation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And even if McConkey plays, I don't care.
That could have some shootout tendencies too. Yeah. Because Tampa Bay is just going to come out throwing.
I would think.
Yeah. Quarterback, Josh Allen, 8,500.
Well, we haven't spent any money yet. Let's keep that in the back pocket.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson, 8,300. Jalen Hurts, 8,000. Jaden Daniels, 7,500. Burrow, 7,300. Mahomes is 6,700. Sam Darnold, 6,600. Jared Goff, 6,500. Baker Mayfield, 6,400. Bo Nix, 6,300. They're 23rd against opposing quarterbacks.
Yeah, he runs, and that's not bad.
Jordan Love, 6,200. C.J. Stroud, 6,200. His numbers.
I kind of think they're going to rebound after the bye.
Yeah. His numbers when he has
Nico
on the field versus when he doesn't are night and day. Like his completion percentage with and without Nico Collins, 11% different.
People don't look at Nico this way, but he's a top 5 receiver in this league.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not much different than A.J. Brown. He is a specimen. I'd be fine with C.J. Stroud there if we're going to go cheapish.
Tua is 6,100.
I was going to say, where are they at? Because they're playing against each other. That's a sneaky blow-up 40
Neither
to 38
one of them
game.
run a lot.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't. But there could be a lot of touchdown passes in that game.
Kyler Murray is 6,000. Herbert is 5,900. They're 32nd against opposing quarterbacks. He's all banged up, though.
I know.
Geno Smith is 5,800 against Green Bay. Anthony Richardson, 5,800. Russell Wilson, 5,700. Caleb Williams, 5,700. Drake May, 5,600. Cousins against the Raiders is 5,500.
Okay.
Jameis Winston.
I think that's going to be a big Bijan game.
Yeah, I think so, too. Jameis Winston is 5,500. Aaron Rodgers against Jacksonville is $5,400.
And I bet they're like 32nd against them.
They're 31st.
And that's where he's at now. Yeah, 3 years ago, he'd have been like number one.
He's coming off his first 300-yard game of the season.
They still have Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams.
I know, and he wants to. He's 5 touchdowns short, I believe, of 500 in his career. You think he wants to get that this year?
Get that for sure.
Yeah.
Everyone, whether they like it or not, he's gonna get it. I'm fine with it. I kind of like Stroud and Tua.
Bryce Young is also against Dallas is 5,300.
He puts up numbers.
They're 28th against opposing quarterbacks.
We've gone so cheap everywhere, but
if it allows us to pay up and get some
we're going to get to, obviously.
Yeah.
I like some of those quarterback values. You want to do Young or
you like Young, Rodgers, you like
I kind of like Drake May too, but the weapons are scary. He just runs a lot. Rodgers. I think the Jags have just totally cashed it in.
I think they have too.
Right. I mean, just flat out done.
Yeah. I mean,
he doesn't have to be great. He throws two touchdowns.
I guarantee you he wants to get the 500 touchdown passes.
Yeah,
I guarantee you. Because he may not play after this year.
If they're on the one, they're going to throw.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of stuff is definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
I might consider Wilson in that game, too.
We can now average $6,600 for our running backs and wide receivers. That's
nice. We've never been in that situation.
No. Saquon, 8,600.
Not this week.
Not this week. Derrick Henry, however, is 8,300.
I don't think he plays in the fourth quarter.
They're 29th against opposing running backs, though.
Oh, I get it. I was going to say about Lamar, though. I don't think those guys play in the fourth quarter.
I don't think so either. Achan is 7,900. Joe Mixon, 7,800. Kamara, 7,700. I don't want to touch that. Bijan Robinson is 7,600. Yeah.
I think it's time Kirk, don't do anything. We're going to feature this dude. Easy throws. That's of interest for me for sure.
Jahmyr Gibbs is 7,500.
That's a nice piece to get.
Buffalo is 30th against opposing running backs.
Wow.
Josh Jacobs, 7,400. Seattle is 22nd against opposing running backs.
I like the other two above him better, though.
Chase Brown against Tennessee is 7,200. Dave Montgomery, 7,000. Jonathan Taylor against Denver is 6,900. James Cook against Detroit, 6,800.
I definitely want a piece of that game. Gibbs is kind of interesting to me.
Tony Pollard, 6,700. James
Is
Conner.
he questionable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Connor is
Spears is a
66.
sneaky one.
Aaron Jones, 65. Chuba Hubbard against Dallas, 6,500.
He has no competition anymore.
None.
They run the ball well.
Like crazy.
That's my favorite one so far. And we could still probably afford a Gibbs or a Bijan.
Brees Hall is 6,400.
Sounds good, the most recent news. But we also don't think that they're going to run many touchdowns in.
Kenneth Walker is 6,300. Bucky Irving is 6,300. Those three are all questionable.
I said, what's Charbonnet?
Brian Robinson is 6,200. Rico Dowdell against Carolina, 6,100.
I like both the backs in that game.
Yeah. Pacheco against Cleveland is 6,000. Charbonnet, 6,000.
He looked really good last week.
He did, but if Walker comes back as a share, then it kills
then it's done, right.
Najee Harris, 5,900. Ramondre Stevenson, 5,900. Arizona's 25th against opposing running backs. Rashad White, 5,800.
We don't think Irving's playing.
I don't think so. Tyrone Tracy, 5,700. Travis Etienne is more expensive
Then Bigsby?
than Bigsby.
Weird.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the passing down back. Their roles are very clear now.
Nick Chubb is $5,500. Jaylen Warren, $5,400. Braylon Allen, $5,400. Gus Edwards, $5,300. Jeremy McNichols, $5,300. Kind of out of sight, out of mind for him, but he's the passing down back there.
Right.
Khalil Herbert, $5,200. Javonte Williams, $5,200. Ezekiel Elliott. Tank Bigsby is $5,100.
We've gone so cheap everywhere else. I think that's a good value, though.
If we could get 3 stud receivers, that would be.
Who are the bigger ticket items backs did you like?
Kamani Vidal is $4,800.
I'm not sure how much he's playing.
He played quite a bit last week.
Yeah, I saw him a lot. I just didn't look at his snap
He's like the passing down back for sure. Sincere McCormick is $4,700.
Wow. He's a number 1.
Yeah.
Whether that doesn't mean he's good or bad. It doesn't matter.
There's 8th against opposing running backs, but they're going to run the football. They're not.
Do you want to go to receivers and see if there's a couple of monsters you like? Because we could definitely fill in the gap.
Well, there's definitely a lot of backs there that I like that are cheaper.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Chase is $8,400.
Wow.
They're second against opposing wide receivers.
Spears is another one I'd be interested in. I don't think Pollard's going to play.
Justin Jefferson, $8,200. Nico Collins, $8,100.
That would get us in that Stroud conversation.
Yeah. Amon-Ra St. Brown, $8,000. I know that's A.J. Brown is $8,000. Amon-Ra is $7,600.
I think I'd rather have St. Brown.
Tyreek Hill, $7,400.
He sort of seems back.
C.D. Lamb is $7,300. Terry McLaurin, $7,200 against the Saints.
Yeah, that's appealing.
Mike Evans, $7,100. Devontae Adams, $6,900. Do we want to stack that?
I'd rather Garrett Wilson, I think.
Okay.
You haven't mentioned him yet.
T. Higgins, $6,800.
Squeaky wheel on Higgins.
Yeah. Cortland Sutton, $6,600. He's quietly moved.
He's had a great year.
I mean, he's the only game in town. They don't throw the ball to anybody else.
Yeah, I know. No, he's been really valuable for fantasy.
Garrett Wilson is $6,500.
I think that's a nice one for a stack.
That is actually below budget for us.
You put him in?
I'll put him in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drake London, $6,400. Malik Neighbors, $6,400.
Is he questionable?
No. Jackson Smith and Jigba, $6,300.
That's too cheap. He's their number 1.
Lad McConkey, $6,300.
Is he questionable?
He's questionable, yeah. Jerry Jeudy, $6,200.
They're going to throw a lot.
Jaden Reed, $6,100. Khalil Shakir, $6,100.
Well, at some point we need to spend money.
I understand that, but these guys are.
There's a lot of values this week, though.
If you think Buffalo and Detroit is a shootout,
Yeah.
then why not go get Amon-Ra St. Brown and Khalil Shakir, the 2 number 1s on both their teams?
See, I was thinking more of – I like Shakir, and I'm fine with that strategy.
And Shakir is actually undervalued, like under budget.
But the guy I'm interested in more than Shakir, since you haven't mentioned him, is Amari Cooper. Because he's their man beater. They're the heaviest man team in the league. He had 1 million targets last week. It wasn't huge production.
He's $5,300.
Wow. He's been there long enough that I trust him. How many targets did he have last week? I know Kincaid was out and Coleman were out.
14 targets.
He's their man guy.
I'll plug it in. Now we can average 7,000. We could get 2 of the.
You want to go get St. Brown?
I don't hate it.
Yeah,
I mean, he's been kind of quiet of late.
Or do you want to go get?
I think I'd rather have the running backs on the Detroit side of things.
Gibbs to me was really appealing.
I wouldn't even hate starting both of them.
Yeah.
So Amon-Ra St. Brown in his last 3 games, 6 targets, 7 targets, 7 targets.
Yeah, it's not
11 targets, 8 targets. So it's not been the production that you'd want to see for a guy who's
that expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm cool with that. You want to go get Gibbs or Montgomery or both?
Well, we got to find another receiver first, and then we can average 7,000 here, so we can actually pay for one of these receivers. I like McLaurin at 7,200.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't actually mind getting Devontae Adams in there as well. If you think Aaron Rodgers is going to go out and throw 3 touchdown passes,
that's a lot of stock to put in.
It's a lot of that's the only problem with that. Cortland Sutton at 6,600 is very appealing as well.
Agreed.
I don't mind London at 6,400.
That's fine. I didn't like him as much as the others.
Smith and Jigba at 6,300.
That one I liked quite a bit.
Yeah. Even Jerry Jeudy against Kansas City. I mean, how many targets is he going to get if Njoku doesn't play?
A lot. And
he also get a ton of
Tillman's out,
attention, but
yeah. Who jumps out at you in that neighborhood? There was a lot there.
I kind of like Sutton.
It's fine by me.
He's the only.
He's like
they
a
can't run the ball,
guy.
and they got nobody else to throw it to.
Targets galore.
All right, so now we can average 7,100 here for our final 3 spots.
2 of them have to be.
Two of them have to be running backs. So, you want to plug Gibbs in now? He's 7,500. He's a little over budget.
Yeah,
but that's fine. I don't care. At this point, we're gonna have plenty of money left. I kind of like Josh Jacobs too against Seattle. They've been running the crap out of the ball.
They really have. You said Seattle's bad against backs.
They're like mid level.
I bet they're better recently. Their defense has really changed, but I don't have a problem with it.
He gets carries. They're throwing him the ball. Last game out, it was only 18 for 66, but he had 3 rushing touchdowns. If you look at the point production over the last month, 24.6, 21.7, 31.6, 23.4. I mean, you
don't need to convince me much on him. He's been really, really good.
Who else would I go look at there? Mixon against Miami is interesting because they're only 18th against opposing running backs.
I'd like to get involved in that game.
Yeah. He's had 24.9, 9.5, 38.3, 17, and 19.6.
He's fresh off a bye.
Fresh off the bye, yeah.
Mixon's cheaper than Jacobs?
Yeah. Well, wait, no. Jacobs is a little bit cheaper. Bijan Robinson is right in between them. His last 5, you're looking at 20.1, 28.5, 10.3, 32.4, and 21.5.
He's my favorite of the 3. Just because Cousins has been playing so poorly.
All right.
Game they have to win.
We got Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. We still have $6,300 left to spend on a flex. I guarantee you we find somebody we like in that area.
Oh, yeah.
So that would get us Kenneth Walker.
He's questionable. Yeah.
That would get us Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Ooh, okay.
That would get us Ladd McConkey.
What's JSN's targets been lately? I bet they're double digit.
He's had, well, no, you'd be wrong. 5, 4, 7, 11, 13.
Okay. So the last 2 have been low.
But he's had 19.6, 11.9, 19.7, 24.8, and 40.
He's their number 1 receiver.
Yeah. Jerry Jeudy's also available there. He has had 17.4, 43.5, 14.5, 29.2, 14.3.
And a bye, right? Oh, no, they played last week. Yeah.
He's had 6, 13, 6, 11, and 11 targets.
Wow. They're going to throw a ton.
They're going to throw like crazy because they're not going to be able to run.
No.
McConkey, if you think he's going to play, going into he didn't play last week, but he had 12 targets, 6 targets, 9 targets, 2 targets, 7 targets. He's had 23.7, 14.3, 21.3. And
they're all good options. I think Judy's probably my favorite, though.
Could also put Rico Dowdell in there.
Is Chuba available? Or we just messed on him?
Chuba was a little, Chuba's 6,500, so we just missed on that.
Okay.
I
think there's a lot of good options.
We just missed on Breece Hall, Drake London, Malik Neighbors. Which one of those 6,300 guys do you like the best? And Judy's only 62.
So I think Judy was my favorite.
Where we could go, Khalil Shakir as well for 6,100.
I don't know who'll get that kind of targets. Judy's got so many targets lately. Tillman and Njoku are out.
You get Zay Flowers in that game against the Giants. That's not bad. Calvin Ridley against the Bengals defense. That's not bad.
That's not bad. Remember, he gets a lot of targets,
especially if I'd like to see the numbers with him with Mason Rudolph as opposed to. Because I don't. Let's go ahead and plug Judy in there.
I'm cool with it.
Yeah,
that gives us $100 to.
We have 100 left over. Yeah. So that's Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, Jahmyr Gibbs at running back with Brian Robinson at running back. Bijan Robinson. I always do that.
Yeah.
The only problem with Jahmyr Gibbs is that they alternate possessions. It's like
it gets
drives you nuts.
Oh, it does, right. But he even gets goal line carries. I mean, it's
Garrett Wilson at 6,500 with Amari Cooper at 5,300 and Cortland Sutton at 6,600. Stone Smart.
So here comes our cheapies, yeah.
Stone Smart at tight end at 2,600. Jerry Jeudy at wide receiver in the flex spot at 6,200. And the Browns defense at 2,200.
I don't get that one.
I don't get it either.
They're right. I mean, it's not a bad defense. They're traditionally much better at home.
The Chiefs aren't blowing teams away. Like, I don't get it.
No, I don't either. And the tackle Garrett situation would make me be very scared if I was a Chief fan right now. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to lock it in.
Good.
All right. So there we go. We got our DFS lineup for the week. Again, that's Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson at running back, Amari Cooper, Cortland Sutton, Garrett Wilson at wide receiver, Stone Smart, the pay down at tight end, Jerry Jeudy in the flex, and the Browns defense. We're relying on the Browns in this one.
I don't mind it because it's the defense. Well, we got a couple of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's all right.
That's all right.
They're a volatile team. They're better
at home too.
They're better for the fantasy world than the real world.
Yes. Well, that's where Browns fans have to live in that fantasy.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Anyways, let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with more right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And it is time now, Matt, to go around the league here and look at all this week's games. I just want to remind everybody you can listen to The Drive from 4 to 6 p.m. every day. We'll be here every day next week, even though it is a short work week for the Steelers.
Yeah, it's a normal week for us, basically.
Normal week for us. And you can hear us right here on these very airways, or you can download the Steelers mobile app. You can also watch the show or listen to the show on YouTube and leave us your comments there. We had some Eagles fans jumping into the comments this week, not happy with how we treated Jalen Hurts. Too bad. Live with it.
He hasn't been great.
Anyways, Chiefs at 12-1 are at the 3-10 Browns. Kansas City favored by 4.5, at least according to this line here. I think it's going down a little bit. I think it opened at like 6 or 6.5. It's gone towards Cleveland. The over/under 43.5 in this one. Judging from the fact that we both that we both liked a couple of Browns in our DFS lineup, I like the Browns in this game.
I loved the Browns in this game when I thought Tillman or Njoku was playing. Now I just like
both
them.
out.
Yeah.
I think they'll keep it close.
Yeah, I'm shocked this is over a field goal. I think they're a dangerous team. Winston's just going to do whatever he wants. You know what I mean? That could go terribly for them, but he might. I think they'll put up points.
He's been better at home.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are 0-7 against the spread in their last 7 games.
Doesn't surprise me at all. I bet they're the worst team in the league in the
2
spread.
months.
Yeah, that doesn't shock me one bit. And I'd be terrified of Myles Garrett versus their tackles.
Oh, my God, yes.
I mean, terrified.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still trying to win Defensive Player of the Year and all that stuff.
He's not going to. You can't,
I don't think.
You can't win Defensive Player of the Year on a 3-10 team. You just can't.
I know, right.
It's like winning MVP on a team that's just awful. Like, no.
Yeah.
No.
But no, I think they keep it close.
How about this little nugget? No team has won the Super Bowl in the same season it had a 6-game losing streak against the spread.
That's strange.
Chiefs are at 7.
Yeah. It's just people think they're better than they are. They're really, really good, but people think they're better than they are.
You got the Bengals at 5-8 at the 3-10 Titans. Cincinnati favored by 5 on the road. The over/under 46.5. Joe Burrow is questionable for this game.
Wow. He's going to get hit, too.
Yeah.
I mean, their interior O-line isn't great, and Sweat and Simmons are. I mean, that's the strength of the defense.
Yeah.
I don't feel strong about it because Burrow versus Levis, but I would take the home team over a field goal.
But it might be Mason Rudolph.
Do we think that? Is Levis injured, or are they thinking about benching him? Or?
No, he's got a shoulder injury.
Oh, okay. Well,
either way, he didn't practice yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Mason
I was taking the Titans either way.
Mason Rudolph threw for 300 on these guys last year.
Yeah. I think they'll run the ball. I mean, the Bengals' defense is so bad. I'll take the home team +5.
Now, they did just lay an egg last week against Jacksonville.
They were really bad in that game, too.
Yeah. Bengals are 4-0 against the spread as road favorites this season.
Huh.
They've beaten up on the bad teams. They haven't beaten a good team all year long.
It's amazing that they've been road favorites as much as they have been.
Well, people thought they were good.
Yeah, I'm saying.
There's a lot of slop out there. The Commanders at 8-5 are at the 5-8 Saints. Washington favored by 7.5, the over/under 43.5, and I will take the Commanders all day long.
Me too.
Jake Haener.
I'm kind of shocked he's in the league.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he's long for. He looks like a high school coach to me, and he looks like a high school quarterback to me.
Alvin Kamara hasn't scored a touchdown in like 7 games.
I bet they start.
Taysom Hill was scoring all the touchdowns for him. Now he's out.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any wide receivers. Maybe we should have looked at the the running back.
Kendra.
Yeah,
Kendra Miller. Yeah, I think they're going to start trying to feature him a little bit more.
But, no, I think this.
I think Washington blows them away.
I don't know how the Saints score in this game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough.
At 8-5, the Ravens are at the 2-11 Giants. Baltimore now favored by 16. The over-under 42.5. That 16 and the over-under is 42.5.
I know.
What would that work out to? I got to think about that for a second. So they're saying that this game is going to be like 28. Let me think. 28-14 wouldn't get there. So it'd have to be like 30-12. 30-13 would get you there.
Mm-hmm.
And that would cover the spread. 30-13 is what they think this score is going to be.
So we were previewing this game on Wednesday when it was 13.5, and we both were like, definitely give me the Ravens. And we were kind of joking, like, what's this have to get to take the Giants? And I'm like, 17-ish.
I still don't think it's
and
there.
I still don't think I can do it. I just think that the Ravens have a penchant for blowing teams out. If this was a Chiefs going there, I would take
They
if
blow
the Chiefs,
the bad
I would
teams
take the
out.
Giants.
Yeah.
But they blow bad teams away.
Except the Raiders.
Yeah. Bills and Ravens are one of those teams. It's just like, run it up.
Yeah. I think they just destroy them. You got the 5-8 Cowboys at the 3-10 Panthers. Carolina favored by 3. I think Dallas opened as a favorite in this game, and it flipped.
Really?
Either that or Carolina was favored by 1, and it's gone. The money has gone towards Carolina.
I know it's the first game they've been favored all year.
43.5. I think that is. I think it opened at 1, and they've gone to 3. The over-under is 43.5.
I think I'll take points. I wouldn't touch it because I could see both situations.
Yeah.
Carolina's played well, and I think they'll run on them. I kind of wanted to get Chuba Hubbard in our lineup. I kind of wanted to get Dowdell in our lineup, but Parsons worries me a little.
A little bit, yeah.
Lamb worries me a little.
He's all banged up, though. That shoulder's a problem.
I think I'll take points, but I understand both sides.
How about this? The Panthers are favored for the first time in 34 games, going back to the 22 season against the Steelers.
Wow.
They lost that game.
Wow. It must have been in Carolina.
That was a Mitch Trubisky start. Mitch Trubisky started down there and
what
beat
was wrong
them.
with the Steelers at that point?
I don't know.
Wow. I'm so shocked that they were dog.
Again, it was Mitch Trubisky quarterback.
Yeah.
Still, I mean.
I think I'm taking Carolina. I've been going back and forth on this one all week.
I get it.
Yeah, I just think Bryce Young is okay.
They've been playing better.
Yeah. I mean, they run the ball, and I think their offense is good.
They've got the better quarterback this week.
Yeah, absolutely. They did last week, too.
Yeah. The Jets at 3-10 are at the Jaguars at 3-10. New York favored by 3.5 because why wouldn't they be? They've been favored all season long.
Yeah.
And the over-under is 43.5, but I do think that Aaron Rodgers.
I'll take the Jets.
Rodgers coming off a 339-yard passing game. They're back in Florida again. That was in Miami last week. They're in Jacksonville this week. The weather shouldn't be a factor. They've scored 74 points in their past 3 games. They'll score half of that this week.
It's kind of miserable, but I'm trying to send some good vibes towards our fantasy lineup, so I'll take the Jets.
Absolutely. You got the 6-7 Dolphins at the 8-5 Texans. Houston favored by 3. The over-under 46.5.
I think I want the over. I'm going to take Houston, but I think Miami's playing better.
I think they're better. Texans are coming off a bye.
That's
they really kind of need this one.
Yes.
They don't wrap up the division title if they win this one, but they come pretty darn close.
I would hope that coming off the bye, you could cut down on the penalties and maybe get some protection stuff figured out a little bit better. They got talent. I think Stroud's much better than he's looked.
Yeah.
But that's a fun game.
No, it is. Yeah, for sure.
There's like 5 or 6 exciting games. That's one of them.
You've got the 4:30 game. This is why Houston doesn't know what's going to happen. They did sweep the Colts this year.
Oh, I got an interesting nugget on this one.
Okay.
Good.
Colts at 6-7. The Broncos at 8-5. Denver favored by 4. The over/under 43.5.
I don't know who I love in this game. I'm going to take the Colts, but I don't feel strong about either side. But I was listening to something this morning. You know how your playoff probabilities, all these statisticians, this game has the most playoff implications. This has the most of any game this year, according to ESPN's people. And here's why. Because it's for the 7 spot. Neither one of these teams is probably going to win their division. I mean, the Colts still could. But here's the thing is, it's not necessarily because they're both fighting for the 7 spot, Denver and Indy. And the reasoning behind it is if Denver loses this one, they go to the Chargers, to the Bengals, host KC at home. So they could go 0-4 with a loss and get knocked out. But here's the one that's even crazier is if they can go to Denver and win, Indy then hosts the Titans, goes to the Giants, hosts the Jags. Like, they could easily go 4-0 to win the thing. So that's what it's come down to is I know that they would be substantially behind them still with an Indy win, but they have such an easier road then.
That's why if you look at it, that's why Houston doesn't clinch if they win too.
Because Indy they got a lot of wins ahead of them.
Yeah.
They have the easiest teams in the league in front of them.
4 points.
I'll just take the points.
Yeah.
I think Denver's the better team.
I'll take Denver in their place. But yeah, I could see it being close, and you never know what Anthony Richardson is going to show up.
Oh, who knows?
You just have no idea. He's like a box of chocolates. You got the Bills at 10-3 at the 12-1 Lions. Detroit favored by 2.5. The over/under 54.5. Probably one of the larger ones of this season.
I know who I like. Who you like in this one?
I like the Lions.
I do too. I'm feeling pretty strong about it, to be honest.
That's a tough place to play. That offense is really tough to stop. Buffalo's defense showed some warts last week in that game, and the Rams are kind of a similarly built team offensively to Detroit, where they got a bunch of different weapons, and I think the Lions are going to have their way with them here.
I agree with everything you said, and just to take it a step further, like I commend the Bills for all of a sudden getting big and tough because they play in Buffalo on offense, not on defense. And they're going to have to deal with that running game and Penei Sewell and Ragnow and all those dudes, and they're going to be relentless with their run game. I don't think they're physical enough or want to play in base enough to be on the road in Detroit.
It's a bad matchup for
Buffalo. For them. Yeah, on that side of the ball it is.
Again, I feel the same way. I think the Steelers offensively are a bad matchup for Buffalo because of what they want to do.
For those type of reasons.
Yeah, for those reasons.
I think Buffalo needs – they might win Super Bowls here, but they
might.
Need
Allen's playing great.
One of my priorities for them would be get bigger and tougher on defense.
You got the 3-10 Patriots at the 6-7 Cardinals. Arizona favored by 6. The over/under 46.5. Cardinals really need this one.
They do. I think they're hitting a bit of a wall in terms of talent, but New England's not the team to take advantage of it. Long road trip. I would think that offense scores points. I'll lay the points, but that's a pretty big number.
That's a big number, but I think I'm with you. I think the Cardinals win the game. And if I had to hold my nose and say they cover, I guess I would guess so.
I guess, yeah.
This is a big game. You got the 7-6 Buccaneers.
It's a big game.
At the 8-5 Chargers. The Chargers favored by 3. The over/under 45.5. Herbert's a little banged up. I don't know how mobile he's going to be for this one. And the Buccaneers will blitz.
They will blitz, and I think their O-line's really good and travels. I think they'll run the ball well.
May not have worse, though, this week.
Yeah, I know. Evans is off the injury report, right?
He was questionable.
I remember yesterday there was something. I'm still going to take Tampa. I think they have more pieces at this stage of their development. McConkey could sway me, but I think I'll take Tampa.
Yeah, Chargers 10-3 against the spread this season.
Are they?
Yeah. They've been pretty good.
That's another sneaky AFC, NFC good game.
They're 6-1 against the spread in their last 7. So they've been pretty good. The Steelers are one of those losses for them.
Yeah. I don't feel strong about picking the game, but I think it's going to be really close.
I kind of like the Chargers.
Do you?
Yeah. I just think by the time things even out in the NFC South, somebody wins it at like 9-8. It's just that kind of division.
I'm going to switch. I don't do that much, but Herbert's thrown 1 interception all year. I bet Baker throws a couple.
But he does too.
Yeah.
I'm
going to take the Chargers.
Or fumbles or does something.
Right. Turns the ball over.
Yeah, they get a good pass rush.
They do. And if Wirfs doesn't play against those edge guys,
that's a problem.
Yeah.
The Sunday night game, you got another good one. The 9-4 Packers at the 8-5 Seahawks. Green Bay favored on the road by 2.5. The over/under 45.5.
I like Seattle.
I like Seattle's too.
I really like what their defense is doing. Night game in Seattle.
It's gonna be loud.
Yeah, I guess it won't be dark yet. There. It's the last game of the day, but it's not going to be.
It'll be 5:20. It'll be dark enough.
Yeah. I think that's a brutal place. That's tough on Green Bay.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Seattle wins it.
Their losses this season have all come to the top teams in the league.
Right. Playoff type team.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Seattle's at right now.
Yeah. 2 Monday night games this week, so don't forget that when you're setting lineups for fantasy stuff. And if you're looking at games here,
sure.
The 8:00 game on Monday, the 4-9 Bears at the 11-2 Vikings. Minnesota favored by 6. The over/under 43.5.
I love the Vikes in this.
I keep waiting for the Vikings to lose a game, and then they play the Bears.
Right.
And then they play Tennessee. And then they play.
Bears were miserable last week.
They just played some garbage.
I mean, that poor guy, I don't mean it. Like, Brown gets bumped up from position coach to be OC. And great, that's what he should be. I hope he's an offense coordinator next year. But now you're going to be head coach. Like, I was a position coach a month ago. I think they're totally overmatched.
Yeah, they haven't won a road game in like 3 years.
Horrendous, right. Awful place to play.
Now, this is not a Sunday road game, so they have won at least one of these in the last couple of years, but I don't see them winning this one.
Divisional night game in Minnesota with that. Right.
Skull.
Yeah, right.
All that stuff,
Loud, right. Yeah, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah. And the other night game, the 6-7 Falcons at the 2-11 Raiders. Atlanta favored by 4. The over/under 44.5. It looks like Desmond Ridder in a revenge game against the Falcons.
Ooh. I'll still take the Falcons.
I'll take the Falcons.
I would think you just reel Cousins in, a lot of Bijan, a lot of short throws. I don't think Atlanta's going to travel to Vegas particularly well, but I also don't think Vegas has a home field advantage either.
At all.
At all, right. I'll take the Falcons. They need it.
They need it bad, and they'll know what Tampa did.
True.
So if they win that, if Tampa loses and they win, the Falcons are back in first place again.
Yeah. If it goes the other way, it might be panic.
They might be done.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of circle the wagons time for them.
Yeah, exactly. And they're on, what, a 3-game losing streak?
Yeah.
They're better than that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And they've been getting after the passer a little bit. And they know Ritter.
Yeah, that's a good point. Right.
Come on.
I mean, maybe it's a different coaching staff, but so what?
The players all they talk to, hey, what'd you guys see out of this kid last year? Okay, he can't do this. Great.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things he can't do.
Vegas might be the worst team in the league.
They're pretty bad.
They're really bad.
Pretty bad.
And I don't think they have any intentions of losing an early pick.
No.
There's so many like 3-win teams. Like the Jags went from having the first pick to the 9th pick just by beating the Titans. You don't want to do that.
No, you don't want to. You don't want to, especially if you're the Raiders. You don't have a quarterback.
Quarterback teams, the Giants don't want to do that. The Raiders don't want to do that.
Don't mess that up.
Right.
Yeah, that's this week's slate of games. There's a lot of good ones this week.
There are. It's a good slate.
Yeah,
including
some bad
Steelers,
ones,
Eagles.
but there's some bad ones.
Yeah, I mean it's nice that everyone's done with buys too.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like you've got the 2 4:30 games on Sunday: the Steelers, Eagles, and the Detroit Green Bay game.
Makes it tough on us.
Wow.
Right.
2 really good football games.
Yeah. I'll probably go back and watch the condensed Bills, Lions.
I guarantee the networks are going to sell both of these games like potential Super Bowl matchups.
Oh, they will.
And they should.
Sure. They should, right. They're all playoff teams.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. But that's this week's slate of games. We got one game left to pick.
We
Matt
do.
And I will do that when we come back. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. And welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, the Steelers injury report for this game against the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. We know no George Pickens, no Larry Ogunjobi, no Deshaun Elliott for this game. Questionable. Calvin Austin showed up on the injury report today with a groin injury. That's the offensive lineman. He kind of their swing tackle. And Montravius Adams, who is still on the reserve injured list, questionable for this one. I would expect with Ogunjobi out that you probably elevate him.
Okay.
I don't know.
Not great news.
Probably not ready to play, 50 snaps or anything like that. But if he gives you 15, okay.
Yeah, I'd like to get him involved.
Yeah.
So I know we're going to talk Eagles, but hopefully most of those dudes are ready for Ravens. Yeah, Pickens, and when in doubt, I'm not saying they're punting this game, but
I keep hearing people
Ravens
talk
is the
about
most important game.
Pickens they might not have him back for 4 weeks. I'm like, I'm watching him moving around the facility and and this is the dude that came back within 4 months of an torn ACL.
I think where that's
he might
stemming
heal
from,
a little bit differently than the rest of us.
Right. And I think that's where it's stemming from is I think a couple of these Twitter doctors have just heard grade 2 hamstring, that's 4 weeks. I don't get that feeling. I don't know. I don't want to get people. I'm not a doctor. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I don't get that feeling.
It's 2 to 4 weeks, first of all.
Yeah,
Secondly, here's the thing. This is a guy who had the grade 2 hamstring injury and was prepared to try to play.
I was say just a week ago we thought he was going to play. Right.
Yeah.
On Friday, whenever we finished the last drive, we thought he was probably going to play
with a grade 2 hamstring strain that most people would be like, oh.
Yeah.
And he was ready to play.
And it sounded like he almost didn't go to the doctors about it.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, so let's dig
He
into
might
this
be built a little bit, wired just a little bit differently than your average Joe.
I would lean more towards 2 than 4.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like Elliott or Ogunjobi are out like the rest of the year.
No, nothing like that. Yeah. So I expect him to activate Montravius Adams off of IR.
Mm-hmm. There are some safety options.
One other thing that they could do here is bring Eric Rowe up off of the practice squad.
Yep.
If you remember, Rowe started a bunch of games. I'm not saying he starts for them this week.
But he was pretty good last year.
But he was pretty good for them last year.
They were really fortunate to find him with some of the safety situations.
Yeah, and he gives you – I mean, this is something that they signed him a month ago, and he should be ready to go again by now.
Mm-hmm. No, so it's not a terrible option. You
also have Cam Sutton that you can play some safety with.
Mm-hmm.
You have DeMonte KZ that you can play some safety with.
I think KZ's been better this year than last. I mean, he's not a superstar, but
they're asking him to do different things this year than they did last year.
Yeah.
They're not asking him to play strong safety.
No, that's not what he should do.
He's playing more free, and that allows him to bump Minkah Fitzpatrick up into the box, which maybe in this game
different.
Get you another run stopper up, and you don't.
It's another good player near the line of scrimmage.
And you're losing one with Deshaun Elliott not being available. Like he's been one of their best run stoppers.
Yeah.
And
I would do different things with Minkah.
Yeah.
Especially with, as you mentioned, Sutton, Rowe, and KZ's ability to be your deep middle guy.
Yeah. So
you're gonna pick it first?
All right. We got the game here on Sunday. The Steelers at 10-3 at the 11-2 Eagles. The line on this was up to 5 Eagles by 5.5.
Eagles really don't have any injury issues.
They have none.
Yeah.
The over/under 43.5. So they expect a lower score. These are two of the better scoring defenses in the league. The Steelers giving up, I think, 18.4 points per game. The Eagles are at 18. So you got two of the better scoring defenses in the league. They both want to run, just run the football like crazy.
They do.
We'll see if either team is able to do that and establish that against the opponent. I've said all season long I'm not picking the Steelers in this game. I've covered a bunch of games out there where the Steelers have gone to Philadelphia. I've covered Super Bowl teams that won the Super Bowl and went to Philadelphia
and not done so great
and looked awful.
I don't know what it is.
I don't know. I mean, 15-6, the 2008 Steelers got beat out there, and it wasn't that close.
And you're good football teams on
with
the road,
a great defense, and it was like I think Roethlisberger got sacked 8 or 9 times in that game, and he probably hit 20 times. So I'm taking the Eagles in this one. But 5.5 is a lot for two running teams.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm going to go Eagles 23. Well, it'll be right around the number 23-17.
Okay. So for another outlet, I had the Eagles winning 27-17. The lack of Pickens to me is massive, and then this more news isn't great. But I've regretted it since I did that. It was 24 hours or so ago, and I changed it to 24-17. I didn't know what yours was going to be, but pretty darn similar.
Yeah.
I do think the Steelers can muck it up and stay closer than my initial 27-17 projection. But I also think the squeaky wheel A.J. Brown's going to be...
I don't know that they're going to do that, though. You've won 9 games in a row playing the way that you play.
I just think he'll have better numbers than he has. I don't know what that means. I mean, I don't think he's going to go for 200 or anything like that.
4 for 48 last week, whatever it was.
He's going to do better than that.
Okay, so maybe it's 5 for 60. All right, but that's not gonna blow you off your doors off or anything like that.
I also would be shocked, not shocked, but I like his chances much less than most weeks for Saquon to rip a long one.
Yeah,
I mean, I think they'll keep him 95 yards. 105 yards.
one of my guarantees for Sunday because we do
some damage to Hurts.
We do the 3 guarantees on the radio for the pregame show. I have Saquon Barkley under 5 yards per rushing attempt.
Okay.
Now
he might have 25 attempts.
Right.
Right.
And he may get to 100 yards, but it's going to take him the 25 attempts to get there. He's been under 5 yards per carry this time, 5 times this season. Again, once against Cleveland, once against Baltimore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
These AFC North. These teams are built to stop the run because they got to play each other.
Sure.
And so they know how to deal with these kind of.
Steelers' run defense is every bit as good as those two.
Yeah.
Ravens' numbers might be better, but it's every bit as good.
Yeah. Steelers this season to opposing running backs are allowing 4.0 yards per carry.
Mm-hmm.
That's just to the running back position.
Right. But it's even lower against quarterbacks.
Well, actually, the number, that's where.
Wow. Yeah.
That's where they're at 4.1. They've given up a couple of longer runs to quarterbacks on some design stuff and things like that, but it's not been crazy.
No.
But yeah,
I think they'll get in Hurts' head and he'll, take some sacks and some things. It's the other side of the ball that worries me.
Yeah.
In this particular week.
I just don't know how the Steelers score enough.
I know. Because even if the Steelers play a great defensive game, the Eagles are going to get to 20. I mean, I'd be shocked if they don't.
The only way they wouldn't is if they turn the ball over a bunch.
Miss kicks.
And that's certainly a factor for this team.
It is. It absolutely is. I just wish there was more Steeler playmakers.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what it comes down to. They just don't have enough in this game.
Yeah, against a Super Bowl playoff type team. I just need more skill in this particular game. Could they win it? Yes. Tomlin could muck this thing up, and they could block a punt and have a strip sack, and wow, they're in this thing.
Defensive touchdown, and okay, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, then you're talking, but I think that's the less likely path.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm not going to kill them if they lose this game. I mean, we don't. I've said all season long they're not going to win in Philadelphia.
Right. Yeah, this looks like the toughest game on the schedule.
Oh, they lost to the Eagles, fire everybody, which will be some of the reaction. I can't believe Tomlin lost that game. It's a good football team.
When the day the schedule came out, this or the Christmas game looked like the toughest one on the schedule. This is the toughest game on the schedule. This is the toughest
game on the schedule. Going to Philadelphia to play them in their building,
right. Yeah. And KC's a little worse than I thought. The Eagles are a little better than I thought. I mean, that was April when the schedule came out or whatever. This is the toughest game on the schedule.
This is a tough one. It's a tough spot. And, again, if they were playing in Pittsburgh, I might feel the other way about this, but they're not. They're playing in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I want Pickens involved.
And I'd like to have Pickens involved.
Yeah,
I'd like to have Deshaun Elliott involved.
Sure. The defensive things I can live with a little more, but they're troubling. I mean, they're both quality starters. Ogunjobi and Elliott's been really, really good. It's nice that Goddard's not in there,
that helps.
The Elliott equation, but they're not lacking firepower.
And I do.
It's a really good football team.
I do think Hurts is playing not well.
Right.
And that kind of levels the playing field a little bit. I do think, as we talked about earlier in the week, I think the Steelers have an advantage at quarterback.
I do too.
But some of that is negated by the fact you don't have Pickens.
We always talk about there's a difference between winning a game and losing a game. If the Eagles lose this game, I think it'll be on Hurts and their kicker.
Or Sirianni doing something silly like
that could be
going for it on 4th and 2 in his own territory or something like that.
Yeah. I don't love him as a coach, but I like his coordinators.
Yeah.
And I like his players a lot. I like his tackles. And
I don't love his offensive coordinator. I'm not a big Kellen.
No, he's fine.
Yeah, I'm not a big Kellen Moore guy, but
as a team, I think they've figured out how to best use their quarterback, running back. Yeah. They've figured out what the best path is on that side of the ball.
I would agree.
Yeah,
I would agree. That's going to do it for the
show. It's going to be a fun one, though.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. We'll talk about it. We'll be back on Monday, all week next week, Monday through Friday, right here from 4 to 6. But that's going to do it for our shows this week. We want to thank Missy Matthews for dropping in on the I'm going to call it the CJ Wolfley hotline today.
Yeah.
Because Justin Miller not here. But for my partner, Matt Williamson, for CJ Wolfley here, making sure we stay on the air, and for Tyler Vittmeyer, making sure our video gets out there onto YouTube. I am Dale Lolley. We thank you for listening to this edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.